committee will come to order. Will commissioners, guests, and staff please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes.
I heard it rattle, so it must be on. Good morning, commissioners and guests. For the record, my name is Jack Miner. I want to thank the commissioners for your positive vote on the Carewell issue last week. It's possible that I'm the oldest person in this room, and I've been around this county for a long time. Let me burden you with a little history of Berry County. There was a time when non-white people were warned not to spend the night in Berry County. In the mid-1950s, a minority group was denied the right to purchase lake property in Carlton Township. As late as the early 70s, a married woman about to experience motherhood was often immediately terminated from her job. There was a time when mobility-challenged peoples had difficulty crossing the street where there was no ramp, and the use of public transportation was almost impossible. Once, young women were limited to cheerleading roles in school sports. Until recently, a gay and lesbian people either hid their lifestyle or were ridiculed, verbally and sometimes physically abused and driven from our community. Who remembers the state-funded facility at Coldwater where not normal people were warehoused away from their families and hometowns? Those were the old days before diversity, equity, and inclusion were given their proper weight. As someone experienced in the civil rights movement, I've heard every argument could be made in support of segregation. Some of those same words were spoken in opposition to the Carewell Plan in the last 2 weeks in this chamber by candidates for county commissioners and others. Who did these divisive words benefit, and why were they spoken? To quote Robert Sellers, Chief Diversity Officer at the University of Michigan, diversity is where someone's invited to the party. Equity means that everyone gets to contribute to the music playlist. Inclusion means that everybody has the opportunity to dance. There's an election today. We will see if the majority of voters want to return Berry County to the old days or not. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Is there further public comment? Hearing
Danny Quanstrom, local pastor, Hastings Church of the Nazarene. I also wanted to speak to the diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation that's been taking place from a pastoral perspective in this community. Revelation chapter 7, verse 9 says, "After this I looked, and there was a multitude that no one could count from every nation, every tribe, every tongue, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, robed in white." Waving palm branches. The image that God has for a good and beautiful community is diverse. And if we want our community to reflect that vision, we need to be able to be intentional about promoting diversity and equity in our community. It seems to me that that's a fairly biblical expectation for people that would call themselves Christian. Not that everyone in this community, county, or room does, but as a pastor, I think it's important that we reflect that and that we have intentional efforts to promote diversity within our community. Pastor Rick Warren just tweeted out a few weeks ago, if you don't want a diverse community, you're really going to hate heaven. because that's God's image for a good and beautiful community is diverse. So for what it's worth, a pastoral and theological perspective is that God's vision for good and beautiful places is diverse. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment? Hearing none, we'll move ahead. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 2212, a resolution to exceed the maintenance limit for Jordan Lake.
I'll support that motion.
Motion made by Gibson. Is there support? More support by Smelker. Make sure your mic's off, Jim, or on.
Are you on?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Is this a song? So what do we have here?
We have a lake level control structure for Jordan Lake, and that is governed by what we'll call Part 307 of NREPA, which is the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act. And so I believe Ms. Connor was at a presentation that I gave about lake levels and their importance to the community, but also the regulations and requirements that are involved in those that are very important to the county, because the county actually has the jurisdiction over those. So in this situation, we have a water control structure that is under the jurisdiction of the County Board of Commissioners, along with Ionia County Board of Commissioners, because it's a lake found in both counties, that's located in both counties. Each County Board of Commissioners has delegated the drain commissioners, those lucky drain commissioners, to be the delegated authority for each county, and so they handle the day-to-day business of that lake level control structure, which is basically a dam. Those are required to be inspected every 3 years. Professional engineers required to inspect those, and then they report to Eagle and to the drain commissioners as to any necessary work to ensure the safety and the operation and maintenance of that dam. In this situation, and I'll let Jim go through the specifics, there is some work that needs to be accomplished on the Jordan Lake Dam, and he'll go into that, and I'll explain why we're in front of you to talk about that. So with regard to the work, the delegated authorities have the jurisdiction and authority to do that without coming to the boards of commissioners if it's under $10,000 annually. Just take care of it. If it exceeds $10,000 under Part 307, then the delegated authority has to report to the Board of Commissioners and get permission of the Board of Commissioners to exceed that amount when necessary. And so that's the purpose of being here today. I'll have Jim go through exactly what needs to take place, and then I'll walk you through the process of what happens after the maintenance is taken care of, and then the process for levying special assessments for those costs.
Anyway, Chad's report, Chad Mancarelli did the inspection on LRE for the dam this last year. They found some deficiencies. We need to put some riprap in, probably some fabric underneath the upstream of the dam, and probably put some more riprap on the downstream side.
Just generally speaking, is the condition of the dam safe?
At this point, with these repairs, yes, it will be.
Yeah, but at present time, the dam there's no risk of failure.
Not in danger.
All right, good.
It hasn't, yeah. This is basically preventative maintenance, but
Good.
the trick to this is it is on the at the beginning of the Little Thornapple intercounty drain. And more importantly, it's in the holy waters. And there's a better name for it, but we call it holy water. The whole debacle with the Little Thornapple was because of the holy waters. So all our exemptions go out the window when you get into those, and we're not taking any chances on repeat issues from the past.
So what we're saying is this is going to require permits under a couple different instances from Eagle, one perhaps under Part 315, but also under Part 301. So sometimes the permitting is more than the maintenance itself in some situations. And so this is going to require engineering and not just Jim going out and doing the fixes, because it is going to require permitting through Eagle.
Excellent.
And they're gonna have their spotlight on us for it.
So what would happen is, we're before you today. We are also in front of the Ionia County Board of Commissioners tomorrow because we need permissions from each county board. After resolutions are secured from both counties, the Drain Commissioners will move forward with engineers to get the necessary permits and retain a contractor to get bids. After those bids are taken, we foresee a couple of different things. We'll have a special assessment hearing with the lake owners. This will not be the whole watershed because we're not doing this under the drain code. We're doing this under Part 307, so the special assessment district is just the lake owners or those with deeded access in the Part 307 district. We'll hold a meeting with them as to the assessment amount and the project cost, and after that takes place, then we'll come back to each of the county boards to approve the project cost, a special assessment role, and then any financing that may or may not be necessary depending on the cost of the project.
So she's saying, we'll come back to see you.
But probably not this year. It'll probably be something that will be next year and levied on next winter's taxes, not this winter's taxes.
Great. Questions or comments from commissioners?
Yep.
So this is $10,000 per county or per total?
So it is not going to be $10,000. We're saying it's going to exceed $10,000. $10,000 is the threshold under the act, so it's going to be much more than $10,000. And that's the total cost. We don't have an estimated cost because the engineering and permitting hasn't taken place, but I think ballpark,
I would say we'll be north of $50,000 before we're done. Like Stacy said, the engineering and
We're just gonna
getting the
continue
permit
with-
is maybe more than the work itself.
Okay. My question was it $10,000 per county since there's two counties involved in it, or
no,
10,000
per
in total?
lake. Anytime the lake, the maintenance is more than $10,000, regardless if it's one county or two, we need to seek permission of the boards.
Okay, so this will be an assessed project for people who are on the lake,
Correct.
and they will have some involvement or some voice in this before it all takes place? Or is it
So-
not really something where they have a voice in because it's a required repair via Eagle?
So yes and no. So everyone has a voice. They can contact Jim's office or Robert Rose's office in Ionia County. The work is actually in Berry County, so I think Jim is spearheading this. So in terms of especially those people along the channel where this is going to take place, I know we'll be communicating with Jim. And so if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, they can always call the office. But this has to be done to meet the requirements of having an established lake level. So to be very frank, if everybody came and said, we don't want this, it's too bad. We have to secure the safety of the dam above everything
Right.
else, and we have to meet the permit requirements of Eagle to ensure its safety.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Vivian?
And so this assessment is only going to be to the residents of the lake, but the dam doesn't impact the entire watershed, the cold water?
This is the trick with these.
Yep. So
Drainage is drain code, recreational is lake level.
So the needed repairs are to the water control structure, and that's governed under Part 307 with just the lake owners. If it was down the channel more and it was for drainage purposes, then the entire watershed would be assessed. There's Court of Appeals opinions where that question has been litigated, and it's fairly specific, and we've looked at it and we feel very strongly this is a lake level cost because it's necessary for the dam itself.
Yeah.
We'll agree to disagree, but okay.
Who owns this dam?
We do.
The counties do.
Is-
It was originally constructed under the drain code before there was this Lake Level Act, but it was transferred when the special assessment districts and the lake level was established and last updated. There was a quitclaim deed from the drainage district to the county boards confirming that the jurisdiction and authority, because it's under 307, is to the counties.
What happened with the Gun Lake Dam? Didn't we transfer that to Gun
The
Lake?
supervisor, because it was before county commissioners, may I answer that? Sorry, let me ask, sorry about that. The Board of Supervisors were who took care of county business, and it was theirs, and then they deeded it to us, the county commissioners.
Yeah, but do we still own that then at Gun Lake?
And he's the, what do you call yourself?
Delegated.
Delegated authority to take care of making sure that the dam stays in good shape.
So what has happened is, nothing ever starts out, it's like an amalgamation of things that gets us where we are today. So dams were often constructed without the idea of it being for recreation. It was for other purposes, whether it was a paper mill or what have you. And then ultimately, whoever put them in didn't have the know-how or the finances to continue to update it and maintain it, or the use of the lake changed from what it was originally established for to more recreational purposes. And that's all over the state. And so as that transformation occurred and we have more and more dams, there's thousands of them in the state of Michigan, then this legislation came into being where the county can now take jurisdiction because people can't agree or don't have the financial wherewithal to do it. So it is not uncommon that the dam on a lake was constructed by somebody else, and then when a lake level is set, then the county takes over ownership and responsibility of that. And that's what this Part 307 is all about.
It's kind of like the Canterbury deal that we got where, the Army Corps of Engineers built it, one guy owned it, they've split it, and now, and nobody wants to take care of it.
So what we are seeing, and this may be a little bit more than you wanted to know, like as an example, I'm working with Clare County. They have 17 lake levels, but there's 50-some dams that somebody owns that they don't have jurisdiction over. And now after the Midland Dam break, people can't get insurance for them that own them privately. They're realizing there's all these new regulations and there's a bunch of requirements to fix them up that haven't been in there before that they can't do. And so now each county is kind of getting ready for all these dams that are under private ownership to come to the county to ensure that their safety and the financing and the opportunity to make those improvements are undertaken at a governmental level instead of a private level. And so this is not an unusual thing. It's very important that we meet the requirements of Eagle to ensure the safe operation. And they're finding people if you don't. We don't want that to happen.
Good. Catherine has a question, then we'll go back to Commissioner Connor and then John.
So 2 questions. Are residents paying a special assessment now for the repair and maintenance? And have you put money aside? Because we know that things do come up and this just happens to exceed that. So where are those funds coming from?
Excellent question. So there is already an inter-county lake level special assessment district that's in place. We'll hold a hearing to update the rule for that, but that is already in place. So people have received assessments for the lake level and for the maintenance and operation of this dam, but not every year because they're only assessed when costs are incurred. Now, there's an opportunity to take those costs, and if it's a lot and Jim thinks it's too unaffordable to have in 1 year, you can levy assessments up to a 40-year period for an improvement project. Now, the question that you're answering, which makes drains and dams different than water and sewer fees, is they're not set up the same from a statutory standpoint, where when you're paying a water and sewer fee, there's an improvement fund set aside, and so they build that up because you're paying every year. Drains and dams aren't like that. They're nothing, 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 a bunch. Nothing, 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 a bunch. And that's the way it's set up statutorily. So there is no improvement fund that we've been saving for a rainy day for. It comes in that manner instead because that's the way the legislation is set up. But we do have the opportunity to finance it over a period of years if that is necessary.
Yeah, that's
Excellent question.
unfortunate that that's that way because there's been people who've been benefiting from that drain in place now.
Both the drain and the dam, absolutely. And it has been, for drains at least, set up this way since Michigan was a territory, even before statehood. And when people can't agree as to the best way to move forward, it doesn't change, and that's where we're at.
Thank you.
Now, in the drain code, we are allowed to pre-assess $2,500 a year until, or up to $2,500 per mile at any time. just
Until
to
we
build
have
a little
five.
bit, Until we
Yeah.
got,
But not to set up a major improvement fund.
No.
It would be nice.
Vice Chair Connor?
The Gun Lake Dam was done a lot, very similar to this. And I know that we had a contingency left over after the project. It wasn't, I mean, we did the project and had a contingency for that. So whatever was left is maybe still there, or I know we've had to have inspections and stuff. But yeah, we can't set up a contingency.
Jim, can you give me a rough estimate on how many Ionia County residents and how many Berry County residents this affects?
I can get it for you. I didn't bring the special assessment with me.
And
And it
then,
will, that's the thing, we'll have to have a public hearing. It hasn't been updated since 2000 when the dam was built. And even then, like Stacy said, it was built through the drain code. So, and they set up the special assessment district afterwards when they set the 307.
But what we can tell you is that the same, it's not like for lake levels, it's not like the drain code where Berry County gets X percent and Ionia County gets X percent and you figure out how you each want to do it. This is done all together, so neighbors on the county line will pay the exact same amount. It's going to be people closest to the lake pay one amount and people with deeded access that aren't on the lake pay a different amount. And it'll be the exact same for both counties.
and heaven forbid this happens, but what happens if one county votes yes and one no?
Then we
It's
don't
not
move
going to
forward.
happen.
Then we don't move forward, and Eagle sends us nice letters.
Yeah.
Until we do move forward.
Yeah.
The damn thing's going to get done.
What's that?
Going to
was-
get done.
Yes.
I'm done.
And if it wasn't for the permitting, it would be a whole different animal, but I mean,
I've worked with you on these before.
yeah.
Any other questions? All right, we do have a minor grammatical issue in the last whereas of the resolution.
Oh, the old one or the new one? Is it the same? That's what one of my questions was going to be.
It says in the second line of the last whereas.
Oh, it says Berry Lake instead of Jordan Lake.
Yes, it says
Yep.
Jordan Lake. Without objection, we will change that to Jordan. Hearing no
Right here.
objection, the amendment is agreed to. Question now before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 2212, a resolution to exceed maintenance limit for Jordan Lake as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You didn't want a roll call on that?
It's a committee.
Okay, good.
We'll do a roll
Next
call
week.
next week.
Well, we're very cautious on this one.
Yep. Do a roll call next week. At this time, the chair to entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to schedule a public hearing regarding CDBG Emergency Program Income Guidelines at the regular meeting of the Berry County Board of Commissioners on August 9th, 2022. And after the public hearing to approve the CDBG Program Income Emergency Repair Program and Guidelines.
So moved, Getty.
Support.
That motion is made by Getty, supported by Jackson. Do we have Marilyn here? What do we have, Marilyn?
It's exactly the same. It's every year we have to approve if we have over 35,000 in program income that's been repaid from loans. It has to come before you for approval to be able to spend it.
All right, any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. Do you have a question, John? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
At this time, the chair to entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2022-23 Child Care Fund Plan and Budget and authorize the chair to sign.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Motion is made by Gibson, supported by Smelker. Do we have Dave or Inez here? Good morning, Inez. What do we have here?
This is our annual Child Care Fund Plan and Budget. This is one that we submit every year to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to fund our juvenile court probation programs and to also cover the costs of residential and out-of-home placement.
All right, so what's the status of the child care fund? Are we in good fiscal condition?
Oh, yes, always. We're
Good.
always in good fiscal condition.
Good, I like to hear that. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2022-2023 child care.
Wait.
Oh, I can't see you behind the. Yes, what's your question?
Is this going to be the budget that's in the packet that you're approving?
Is it going to be in the packet? Yeah, it's in the
Is it
packet.
the budget that's in the packet?
I don't understand that question.
You mean the 23 budget?
2020, 22, 23 budget. I looked in the packet and there was a budget with line items in it. Is this the one?
Yeah,
Okay.
if it's in the packet, it's the one we use.
Yeah, okay, well, I said there's 3 vacant positions in there. Are you funding 3 vacant positions? And how long have those positions been vacant? There's 2 in probation, well,
Well, I don't have personnel answers for you, but Inez, how many, are there extra positions being funded in this?
Truancy
The-
caseworker.
Yeah, so we have, historically, we've had 5 or 6 probation officers. It's really based on our caseload. The child care fund requires that we have a 1-to-20 ratio, so 1 probation officer for 20 youth that are in programming. We plan for it every year because if we don't, then it's much harder to go back to the state to ask for those. But the positions, we currently have 4 probation officers that are on staff, and as our caseload numbers increase, we would then start posting for the positions.
so if you get this money from the state, from the county, and you don't use that money, what happens with that money?
It's a reimbursement grant, so what we spend, we seek reimbursement on, and if we don't spend it, we don't seek reimbursement. It's just,
So it's a 50-50 shot.
Yeah.
That's the reason I was asking.
Yes.
It's taxpayer money, so that's the reason I was
Yep.
curious.
If it
Further
doesn't,
questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2022-2023 Child Care Fund Plan and Budget and authorize the chair to sign. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
thank you.
You're welcome. I don't have the truck. Oh, here it is. This time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to purchase a 2023 Chevy Silverado 6500 HD for the amount of $78,042.58 with funds to be paid from the vehicle fund. Anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make it.
Support.
Motion is made by Gibson, supported by Connor. Discussion. Jim?
Jim left.
He said he was good. Want me to go get him, or?
Well, without objection, we'll postpone this one, and we'll take up the next item. Hearing no objection, the item is postponed. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners, in accordance with the Airport Commission Joint Operating Agreement, approval to spend approximately $40,000 from the Airport Fund for engineering pre-construction for the terminal planning project as approved by the Airport Commission.
So moved.
Support.
Motion is made by Smelker, supported by Getty. Discussion. So what do we have here, folks?
Well, it's in the minutes of our airport
Yeah.
meeting that we move this to the county commission and the city. And this is a project that they put in for the state with. And Mead and Hunt are going to be the engineers.
They usually do the airport projects, right?
Pretty much, yes. And they now have it as a state that you have to put approximately 10% down, pre-construction money. And with that 10%, they figure that construction like this would run around $400,000. The state, so 10% is 40. But they will, after the project is done, reimburse it all except for 5% of it.
What's the ultimate goal of the project?
The goal of the project is
Renovation of the terminal
terminal,
And-
sidewalks,
parking lot.
and parking lot.
Good. Any questions or comments?
And there is money in the airport fund balance for this.
There should be. Is there any questions or comments? The airport's in good financial health. We intend to keep it that way. At this time, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners, in accordance with the Airport Commission Joint Operating Agreement, approval to spend approximately $40,000 from the Airport Fund for engineering pre-construction for the terminal planning project as approved by the Airport Commission. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Without objection, we'll take the postponed item from the table. Hearing no objection. The question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to purchase a 2023 Chevy Silverado 6500 HD for the amount of $78,042.58 with funds to be paid from the vehicle fund. Jim.
This truck, we had figured to put into the budget for this next year at $84,000. We finally got some newer numbers from, well, International came in at $84,000. LaFontaine, let me back up and give you just a little bit of history. We started down this process this spring about getting my ideal truck. Great idea.
Let's back up. What's the truck for?
For basically moving equipment and hauling material and other things. Same, just as a drain commission truck. We got our truck that was purchased almost 7 years ago. It's getting close to 100,000 miles. Michael said typically 5 to 7 years we replace the vehicles. That truck works good as a tool truck. We've got a list in here of all the stuff that we carry on it, because it seems like every job we're on, we got to have different stuff on it. Should be your last page. So that's the list of stuff that we carry with us, because every job seems to be different. There's more stuff we throw in day to day, but most of that stuff stays on the truck. The only limit with that truck is it doesn't have a dump box in it. It's not overloaded when we're hauling stuff, but it's all that it can do to handle the Mini or the Bobcat or the dump trailer or all that stuff. We did purchase a dump trailer a year ago to be able to start moving materials on when we need to have materials on site, pea stone, riprap, good stuff like that. But of course that means that we got to take the riprap and then go back for another trailer to get the Bobcat or the Mini. Not a very efficient system. And with Joey and I both being out on the drains working quite often, he'll be on one job site and I'll be on the other. I'll be, like this morning, he's out on Kaiser's property, cutting trees. I'm in here. We just can't be we can't have the truck in 2 different places, so it makes it a little challenging. Talked to Michael about it. He said it's not uncommon to just rehome the used truck, as long as we undertake all the maintenance, the brakes, the tires, oil changes, and all that stuff under our purview. As for the new truck, like I said, we started out with Luella gave me 5 my deal dealers. 3 of them said we ain't doing anything to do with my deal. You can't get a truck. International came back. He said he had 1 slot left that he could put together a truck in 23, and that was back in May. And he came in at $84,000, including the box. Mm-hmm. Then LaFontaine, Kim went through it and went through it and went through it. They can't do quote unquote on my deal, but she gave us a real good discount on it. So that got it down to $78,000. We were going to have it in this fall's budget, which will finish out in September sometime. At that point, we don't know if we'd even get the truck built in 23 if we wait that long. So we thought, well, we'll ask now, go over any questions you got.
Any questions or comments? Catherine.
So the road commission has been successful in rotating trucks, keeping new trucks. I think they sell them every 2 or 3 years.
Every year, yep.
Every year,
yeah,
okay.
It works really, really good, yep.
Is that something the road commission has thought of? I mean, it sounds like you've kind of driven your current truck quite a few years,
right.
quite a few miles on it.
The county doesn't, I know Brad has talked to Michael about doing that, changing over the county vehicles to changing them out every year or two, and I don't know where that's at, whether they decided to or not.
I can respond to that. So we haven't, primarily because the vehicles that the road commission purchases are vehicles that are of a high value and high demand, trucks, if you may. What we're purchasing primarily, except for in this case for use, are vehicles that are cars that just transport an individual that has to, maybe a probation officer that has to check on a case, or those types of situations. So we're not buying a high value vehicle. They don't have a lot of markup in them, if you may. So turning them over on a year-to-year basis just doesn't seem to work well for us. It'd be nice, we'd love to be able to do that, but it's not as effective and certainly not as certain as what the road commission does. They've been able to find that niche in that market. Now, this vehicle may be a situation there, because we can buy it under the government purchasing plan, which is significantly discounted, and then you drive it for a year, turn it over, and effectively get back what you've paid for it. Kind of a, maybe not a direct answer, but that's why we haven't gotten into that business of trying to turn them over. The largest portion of our fleet are the police vehicles, and they're just such a specialty vehicle, and we invest a significant amount into then having to equip them that turnover on a yearly basis doesn't work either.
Do you know what our vehicle fund balance is?
I can tell you that here in just a minute.
Question was from Commissioner Gibson.
Looking
what
for
was
the vehicle fund
the
balance.
vehicle fund balance?
Is this such a specialty vehicle that it's retrofitted for your purposes, that it wouldn't make sense? I understand what Michael is saying, that the other vehicles in our fleet don't make sense to have that turnover, but this one seems to be more similar to the road commission vehicles.
Yeah, the 6,500. One of their other things is they're always driving new ones. That way they don't have the maintenance stuff. I mean, we could look at it with this, but then we'd have to buy a new truck every year or two and take that hit, I guess you'd call it. They have real good luck. They actually made money doing theirs.
Yeah, and right now, vehicles, resale
Yeah.
values are higher than they've ever been. I
Yep.
mean, they're just in
Yep,
high demand.
for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, we could look at it, but I think it'd be, I don't know how something like that would resell in a year or two.
it seems to work for the road commission is
Right,
all I know.
yeah,
It's been
yeah.
a
And they
very
only-
successful
Yeah.
way to
Yep.
keep vehicles current and.
I mean, we could look at it, but what they typically buy, and I've asked them about buying one of their used ones, but it doesn't fit this criteria. They don't drag their equipment around with pickups, they use their big dump trucks. I mean, I don't blame them, they got it. And I know I've asked them, I said, hey, could you get a regular cab truck? And he said, well, nobody wants to buy a regular cab truck, they all want crew cabs. Because I like a regular cab. Most people want a crew cab now, they want something pretty, and they want a car that sets up a little higher. This ain't something that very many people are gonna wanna buy.
They've just seemed to have hit a sweet spot with
Yep.
picking vehicles that serve their purpose, and then
Yep.
you can resell them.
City's doing the same thing. They just resold theirs, because my wife said, maybe you could buy one of them and retrofit it. Well, they were crew cabs that were 4 years old that still brought well over $50,000 with a regular box on them. It's like, and then you take something like that and you put a dump box on it, it changes your loading specs. You can't transfer enough weight onto the front end of it. When I was in excavating, you wanted a dump truck that you could balance out so you don't get caught by MDOT. So, and this, Vivian had a question. She said, why such a big truck? We looked at a 3,500 and we looked at a 6,500. 6,500, what I asked them is, what's the biggest truck we can get that you don't have to have a CDL to drive it? If you put a trailer on a 35, 45, 55, or 6,500, you have to have a CDL. But the straight truck without the trailer, you don't.
So the balance of the vehicle fund is $816,000. So we have ample resources to meet this request. Are there any other questions or comments? Good questions. Hearing none, the question before the committee is to authorize the purchase of a 2023 Chevy Silverado 6500 HD in the amount of $78,042.58 to be paid from the Capital Vehicle Replacement Fund. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
And we can remove our request from the capital request budget, so.
All right, cool. Winner, winner. All right, limited public comment at this time. Any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Good morning. Brandon Strong from Hastings Charter Township. Commissioners, for the past 2 weeks, I, along with others, have spoken out against approving CareWell Services' plan to install DEI training as part of their direction. Correctly, Mr. Chairman, one commissioner stated that voting for or against wouldn't change anything for the organization. Although I agree that it wouldn't change anything, it would have recognized the training for what it is. The opposite of diversity training, the opposite of equity, the opposite of inclusion. Mr. Chairman, you have heard public comment that would paint those of us that spoke out as bigoted, simply because I've spoken out against DEI, which in and of itself is a bigoted training. A training that 5 years ago was determined by a left-leaning research organization to not have success and tending to promote racial bias. Simply because something includes the words diversity, equity, or inclusion does not mean that it promotes diversity, equity, or inclusion. As we can recall, based on the needs of Berry County and CareWell's own plan, DEI was not something that they saw as a target area. They inputted the goal based solely on state alignment, not community needs. Mr. Chairman, similarly, simply going to law school doesn't mean you are a lawyer or even a good lawyer. Going to seminary or being a self-proclaimed theologian doesn't mean one is a pastor. And lastly, fixing my dishwasher doesn't mean I'm a plumber. Having a better understanding of DEI should have been a priority to better determine if it would assist us in Berry County. Standing behind the name of DEI simply to call your opposition bigoted doesn't sit well with me. I noticed that all, or at least some of us that spoke against the plan, we did not speak against actual real-life diversity in this county. It's disingenuous for anyone to claim that those that spoke are bigoted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there further public comment? Hearing no further public comment and without objection, the committee will now adjourn. Committee is adjourned.
Commissioner comments?
Oh, I forgot. You know, I've never been here for commissioner comments.
I had to be reminded last
Yeah,
week, too.
so got a new thing on the agenda, commissioner comments.
I'll yield my time to Vivian.
All right, Commissioner Connor.
I don't have much. I did hear back from Stacy, our CareWell Services person, and she said she would get me the figures, and I haven't gotten those yet. She did say DEI was something that if the COA was interested, they would assist with, but it's not a requirement. So,
Great.
to let you know that. And I didn't get an email from Randy Heinze, so I'm hoping that you will enlighten the group here about that. Catherine?
Sure.
Okay.
So Randy Heinze from the DNR.
I don't think your mic's on.
It is. Maybe I just need to speak right into it.
There you go.
Randy Heinze replied that the estimates, the quotes came back much higher than expected for the shooting range, and so they're working on still bringing that to fruition. And they have put signs up at the at the makeshift or unofficial shooting range in Yankee Springs Township, and there's no explosives, no shooting at explosives allowed, and it's closed after dark. So, and they are ticketing offenders that disregard the rules. So hopefully that will help those residents that live close to the shooting range, and they are working on progress on the new range off M179.
Great. Thank you to Vice Chair Connor for filling in for me for the last couple of weeks. Anything else?
Just good luck to all those on the ballot today, which is all of us. So change is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And Hoot is riding off into the sunset, slowly but riding, so, you know.
I think I won.
All right.
Prize ride-in today?
All right, there's no objection. The committee will now adjourn. Committee's adjourned.